the Minnesota Vikings host the Seattle Seahawks for the home opener with fans for the 2021 season. The Vikings will play the Seattle Seahawks this Sunday at 3:25 Central Time on Fox. Seattle Seahawks are 1.5-point favorites in this matchup, and we will be previewing this matchup and our predictions for this matchup on this episode of Morning Kickoff. Starting off by taking a look at the Vikings injury report. Vikings Wednesday injury report, Anthony Barr was limited during Wednesday's practice with a knee injury. Anthony Barr has been out all this season thus far and will likely also miss this game. Christian Darrisaw also has been out this entire season, was limited during Wednesday's practice, again with a groin injury. Patrick Peterson with a toe injury was limited during Wednesday's practice. I would expect that he comes back, as we need Patrick Peterson healthy to play this matchup and go up against DK Metcalf. Eric Kendricks was limited during practice injury with a hip injury. Eric Kendricks, huge player, the biggest player on this Vikings defense, alongside Danielle Hunter and Harrison Smith, 3 core players in this Vikings defense. Vikings will rush Eric Kendricks to come back to play because we cannot have Troy Dye start at middle linebacker for the Vikings. Everson Griffin with a concussion was also limited during Wednesday's practice. Everson Griffin did miss last week due to a concussion, and typically you are out only 1 week, so I would expect that Everson Griffin is fully healthy to play week 3 against the Seattle Seahawks. Dalvin Cook, huge one, did not practice with an ankle injury. Dalvin Cook, this is a rough one. Biggest player in this Vikings team, hands down, no question about it. Without Dalvin Cook, I don't know if we can win this game. We need Dalvin Cook to play, and that's why I do believe that he will play, as the Vikings will rush him back to play, and this is an ankle injury, which is rough. Dalvin Cook has suffered with many ankle injuries so far, so hopefully it's not as serious as as a typical did not practice assumes to be. However, he is questionable to play this Sunday's matchup, and I would expect that the Vikings do rush him back. If they don't, we will start Alexander Madison at running back, and Alexander Madison played very well with the Minnesota Vikings against the Seattle Seahawks. Second half of last year's game, where Dalvin Cook did go out with the injury, Alexander Madison stepped in second half of the game and looked great. He rushed for over 100 yards in one half. So there's no question that Alexander Madison can do great. Thing is, Dalvin Cook is light years better than Madison, and that's why the Vikings should rush him back if he can possibly be healthy to play. Bashaud Breeland was limited during Wednesday's practice with a back injury. Now, in this podcast, we have not been fans of Bashaud Breeland thus far, so can't say that I don't care if he's injured. Okay, I'm sorry. Cameron Dantzler looks so much better than Bashaud Breeland at this point, and I don't know what else it has to take for the Minnesota Vikings, Mike Zimmer, to bench Bashaud Breeland and put Cameron Dantzler in. Maybe this is what it will take, because Bashaud Breeland, these first 2 weeks have been horrible, and him going up against Tyler Lockett will only be worse. So that covers the Minnesota Vikings Wednesday injury report. Taking a look at notable Seahawks injuries, Rashad Penny did not practice on Wednesday with a calf injury. I would expect that Rashad Penny, backup running back for the Seattle Seahawks, back up to Chris Carson. They've been splitting snaps all season, and I'd expect they do so against the Minnesota Vikings defense. But if he's not healthy, obviously Chris Carson will play a majority of the game. Freddie Swain did not practice with a back injury. Freddie Swain is the Seattle Seahawks wide receiver 3, as well as their starting punt returner, and will likely be out this matchup. And then Brandon Shell, the Seattle Seahawks starting right tackle, did not practice with an ankle injury and is not expected to be healthy for the week 3 matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. So a little bit easier for Danielle Hunter to get past a backup right tackle. Danielle Hunter could get 4 sacks this game for all we know. 5 sacks. 8 sacks. I mean, if he's playing up, I don't know how great their backup right tackle is. I don't do much research on outside of the NFC North Division's offensive line. I'm assuming he's not very good, and if he's going up against Danielle Hunter is going to have a lot of fun with him. So that covers the Vikings and Seattle Seahawks injury report. Vikings Seahawks. Now we're getting into it. One of the biggest rivalries in the NFL that nobody talks about. Vikings are 0-7 against Russell Wilson. Vikings are in a 7-game losing streak against the Seattle Seahawks. And in their history together, Vikings are 13-5 against the Seattle Seahawks. This is, no question about it, the biggest game of the season for the Vikings. No question. I mean, Vikings are coming off of 2 losses that they should have won. Vikings are playing Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks, a team nobody on this Vikings team has ever beat in the Vikings uniform. Nobody. Our longest tenured Viking is Harrison Smith, who's been with the Vikings now going into his 11th season, never beat the Seattle Seahawks. Not once. Mike Zimmer, going into his 8th season as a head coach, never beat the Seattle Seahawks. This Vikings team wants to win more than I've ever seen them want to win. In the Dalvin Cook press conference, in the Mike Zimmer press conference. They all want to win this game that much. They're over last week's loss. I mean, yes, we should have won that game. There was multiple plays that the Vikings should have won that game. Now we're looking to week 3. All of these Vikings team, all the players on this team wants to win. And the players, this means so much to the players. It means more to us fans. Because I honestly don't even remember the last time the Vikings beat the Seattle Seahawks. It's been that long. You take a look at the Vikings Seahawks record right here. If we take a look at the Vikings Seahawks history, the last 7 games, since Russell Wilson has been starting at quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, Vikings have lost all 7 matchups against Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks, including 3 straight in 2018, 2019, 2020, and now in 2021. We're playing the Seattle Seahawks 4 years in a row, and the last 3 years have all been at Seattle on a primetime matchup. This can't be better in our hands for us to win this game. I mean, you're 0-2 right now. The team wants to win badly. I mean, I've never seen this team want to win so much because those are 2 losses you should have won. Vikings should be 2-0 right now. This team wants to win really bad. Us fans, we want to see our team win, especially when it's up against Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. The last 3 years, all have been at Seattle on a primetime matchup. Last year, the Minnesota Vikings went to Seattle to play the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday Night Football, lost that game. 2 years in a row before that, Minnesota Vikings went to Seattle to play the Seattle Seahawks on Monday Night Football and lost both those matchups as well. I mean, this Vikings team has to win this matchup. It just has to happen. Since 2012, we've played the Seattle Seahawks 7 times and have won none of them. Out of those 7 times, 4 of them have been at, and as a matter of fact, okay, take away the playoff game, the regular season games that we've played the Seattle Seahawks, out of 6 of those, 5 has been at Seattle. That 2016 one was the playoff one, and we're not going to get into that because that was Blair Walsh's fault. But again, out of the 6 times we've been regular season scheduled with the Seattle Seahawks, the NFLPA decided to put us on an away game 5 out of 6 of the times. And now it's finally back at home. This can't be a better situation for the Vikings to win. So how will the Minnesota Vikings win this matchup? It's no question we have to. Vikings are 0-2 in the season. This is the home opener with fans. Mike Zimmer has never beat the Seattle Seahawks. Harrison Smith, the longest tenured Viking, going into his 11th season, never beat the Seattle Seahawks. Vikings have to win. And there's no question about that. But the thing is how are the Vikings going to win? The same way the Titans did last week. Titans beat Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks by simply outscoring them. The way the Vikings will have to win this game, if they want to win, is through Dalvin Cook, through their offense, and outscoring Russell Wilson. Because our secondary is awful. It's our corners, our cornerback room is the worst in the NFL. After 2 weeks, we are the worst cornerback room in the NFL. So the Tennessee Titans beat the Seattle Seahawks last week, 33-30 in overtime, by simply outscoring Russell Wilson. This is what the Vikings have to do. We are the Tennessee Titans. An excellent running back, 2 great outside wide receivers, an above average quarterback who sits behind an acceptable offensive line, judging off of last week. Tennessee Titans had a total of 532 yards of offense against the Seattle Seahawks. Derrick Henry, 35 carries for 182 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Ryan Tannehill threw for 347 passing yards with a 67.5% completion percentage. This is how the Vikings will win. The same way the Tennessee Titans did. Feed Dalvin Cook. They gave Derrick Henry 35 carries. Do the same. Give Dalvin Cook 35 carries. Derrick Henry had 5 yards per carry. That's enough to win you a game. This is what the Minnesota Vikings need to do. Establish the run early in the game. It comes down to play calling. Use that run to set up the pass. And then let Kirk Cousins do what he's done the first 2 weeks. Feel the pressure. See the blitz. Understand. Have that pocket awareness that we need him to have. Make a play. Move outside the pocket. Make a play with your legs. Buy yourself some more time. Because this offensive line is not going to buy you more than 5 seconds. It's the Seattle Seahawks defensive line. Not very great. However, still, they're going to be rushing Kirk Cousins all game because we have terrible players on this offensive line. And I'm looking at you, Rashad Hill. And that's basically it. Vikings are going to be rushed. And they're going to be blitzed a lot in this game. And Kirk Cousins is going to have to move outside the pocket and make a play. But it starts with Dalvin Cook. If Dalvin Cook is healthy, you feed him. Feed Cook. Use that run to set up the pass. This is how the Vikings are going to beat the Seattle Seahawks, is by simply outscoring them, the same way the Tennessee Titans did last week. Now, you take a look at the Vikings defense, however, it's brutal. I mean, Seattle Seahawks can easily put up 40 points. I'll say it right now, they can. And that's because we have Bashaud Breeland at corner. Now, Breeland did not practice and might not play this match, or was limited during practice and might not play this matchup. You should just bench him anyways. I mean, you have to. You saw how great Cameron Dantzler was in week 2, how great his rookie season was. He's light years better than Bashaud Breeland, judging off of Breeland's first 2 matchups. You have to put Cameron Dantzler on Tyler Lockett, because we cannot have Breeland on Tyler Lockett and get burned by every route Lockett will run. He's second in the league for receiving yards right now for a reason, because Russell Wilson throws the best deep ball in the NFL to 2 of the league's best deep threats in the NFL. You can't have Breeland on Lockett, or you're going to lose. Patrick Peterson, we're going to have to put our hope in Patrick Peterson that he won't allow a play over 30 yards to DK Metcalf, because DK Metcalf, and we can't really double team him because of how many other offensive weapons they have. So we're going to have to put man-man coverage on DK Metcalf. And if that doesn't work out, I guess you can use double coverage on him with like Harrison Smith or something like that. It's rough though. It's DK Metcalf. I'm hoping Patrick Peterson can handle him. If he can't though, they'll have to fix some defensive schematics. But when it comes down to it, Cameron Dantzler on Tyler Lockett. This is what you need to do on defense. That's your start right there. And then second, do the same thing you did against Kyler Murray. Blitz Russell Wilson all game long. Now, blitzing Harry the Hitman last week didn't work so well because you left a wide open space in your field. So don't really blitz Harrison Smith as much as you did, but you can blitz Eric Kendricks. You can blitz what they were doing with Nick Vigil, maybe even Mackenzie Alexander. Throw a little spice in there, make it a little bit different. But you have to blitz Russell Wilson because our defensive line is not going to be able to rush him all game. Danielle Hunter will. I'll say that right now. Danielle Hunter will rush Russell Wilson all game, especially if they don't have their starting right tackle. However, outside of that, our defensive line, not great when it comes to rushing the passer. So you're going to have to blitz and get to that quarterback, apply pressure on him so he doesn't have enough time to complete a 60-yard pass to DK Metcalf that loses us the game. A 80-yard pass, an 80-yard touchdown to DK Metcalf that loses us the game. Because this is how the Vikings lost the first 2 weeks, was big plays allowed. Patrick Peterson, Cameron Dantzler, Harry the Hitman, Xavier Woods. These players have to force shorter passes because deep throws are going to lose us this game. If the Vikings are allowing too many explosive plays on defense, Vikings will lose this game. The same way they lost against the Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, the same way they lost against the Bengals. Now, Bengals, it wasn't the biggest reason, but it was up there. Allowing big plays to Jamar Chase, allowing huge plays to Tyler Boyd, to T. Higgins, to AJ Green, to Rondell Moore. I mean, these are players that you shouldn't be allowing these big plays to. And now you're going up against DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, two wideouts who are much better than all the receivers I just named. It's going to be rough for this Vikings secondary. But really, the fate of this team relies on that offense, because I have no question that Russell Wilson's going to look great against this secondary, going to look excellent against this Vikings defense. The problem is, are we going to be able to outscore Russell Wilson? Because no matter what this Vikings defense does, Russell Wilson will score over 20 points. Thing is, how is this Vikings offense going to outscore Russell Wilson? The same way the Tennessee Titans did. And that's why this Minnesota Vikings team, it means so much for our team to win this game. Kirk Cousins has been here long enough to understand how much of a rivalry this actually is. Vikings have to win this game, especially after coming out 0-2. But it's the Seattle Seahawks who have really owned this Vikings team through all of history. And so that comes into offense and defense, how the Vikings will win this game. Now for our final predictions for this game. Or we're getting into our predictions for this game. Bold prediction of the week. I'm 1-1 on my bold predictions of the week, as I predicted KJ Osborne to get his first NFL touchdown last week. And week 1, I wasn't even close on my bold prediction. But this week, Kirk Cousins will outperform Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins. Actually, it just hit me now. Kirk Cousins it adds to the reasons of why the Vikings should win, why the Vikings want to win this game. Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson were rivals in college as well. So And they're going to talk about this in this game because they were both in the Big Ten. Russell Wilson was with Wisconsin and Kirk Cousins was with Michigan State. They were rivals in the Big Ten as well. So Kirk Cousins will outperform Russell Wilson in this matchup. I'm very hopeful. So far, Kirk Cousins has outperformed Russell Wilson so far this season, and I'd expect that to continue. As Kirk Cousins, if he brings the same Kirk from week 2 into this matchup, he's going to outperform Russell Wilson. And that's my bold prediction of the week. He's going to outperform him statistically by QBR, passing yards, touchdowns, and he's just going to outperform him based off of the eye test, who is playing better football. And for the final prediction for this matchup, Minnesota Vikings will come off with their first win of the season by outscoring Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks 36-28 in this matchup. A huge relief for the Vikings. I mean, this is what the Vikings need to get going. Be a playoff contending team, and the Vikings are back in it. Because we're not much behind the Packers right now. We're not much behind the Bears when it comes to the NFC North. We can easily pass them up. By simply winning this game and our divisional games, a majority of our divisional games, Vikings can still win this division. It's open. It's not like we're in the NFC West like the Russell Wilson and the Seahawks are, who, if they lose this game, it could knock them out of the playoffs. So this means so much for both teams right now. And if you remember, before the season started, when the season schedule came out, I was so relieved to see the Vikings are playing the Seahawks at home and it's not prime time. I circled this matchup. I said, if there's one matchup that I would bet my money on right now that the Vikings would win, it's going to be this one. Seattle Seahawks are 1.5-point favorites for a reason. I mean, Seahawks so far have looked better than the Minnesota Vikings this season. However, I'm very confident that the Vikings can win this game. And it comes down to offense. How many points can we put on the board? And it comes down to defense. Can we hold the Seattle Seahawks for their biggest play to be under 40 yards? And that sounds like not much, but that is a lot for this Vikings defense so far this season, and a lot when you're playing Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks, who take deep shots all game long. Minnesota Vikings will beat the Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks for the first time ever in history. Vikings will beat the Seattle Seahawks with Russell Wilson under center. This would be such a relief for Minnesota Vikings fan. This game just means so much for the fans and so much for the players that it just has to happen. It is bound to happen that the Vikings beat Seahawks. It's here. It's happening now. We're living in the age where the Vikings aren't going to be traveling to Seattle on prime time to play them. This is a home game, afternoon game. Vikings have to win. And we'll be recapping this matchup on Monday after the Vikings win. Thank you.